Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency for Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. Our first item of business is privilege of the floor, and we have several blue sheets and some written comments. I'd go to the blue sheets first, and I will go in order that they were on my desk. First up, Teresa Alt is with us.
Hi, is it on?
Yes. It is.
So I'm Teresa Alt, 206 Eddy Street, City of Ithaca. And first, let me reinforce what I said in greater detail at the public hearing. A vote for the whole package is wrong. Just vote for a few key parts that start the project. Second, about the hearing itself. I was very encouraged to see that press releases announcing the hearing had gone out and were printed in a couple of local papers. I was encouraged to see attendance by the whole IDA board. Thank you for paying attention. I was happy to see quite a few members of the public show up and express a range of views, and I was particularly encouraged that representatives of our very underfunded schools showed up. One downside of the hearing was that the assistant attorney who chaired it didn't read the written comments that people who could not attend had submitted. I'm sure they were passed on along with the spoken records to the IDA board members, but they are not to be found on the IDA website, as far as I could tell. And so we, the hoi polloi, don't get to hear them or see them.
Thank you, Teresa. Next up is Jill Tripp.
Hi, Jill Tripp, 112 First Street in the city of Ithaca. Been a city resident for almost 40 years now, and I know relatively few of you, so hello. I'm also new to the whole tax abatement and IDA part of the world, so I hope you'll excuse me if I misspeak in some way. I became aware of this very recently because I'm a member of the school board, and my comments today are mine alone, although I would hope to be addressing you at some point in the near future, specifically as a representative of the school board. My concerns about the Southworks project in particular are that it is a very large project, likely to be built over a long period of time. And my concern is that the amount of money that will be diverted from the school district, as well as from property taxes, is, to my way of thinking, excessive for this project. I would like to see it looked at again, step back, take a bit of time. I know you've already taken a lot of time on that, but I can't tell you how many projects over the years that I've taken a lot of time on that turned out not to be something the public wanted. So that's the risk of your role here. I don't think sufficient care has been taken in terms of the costs of this project to the citizens of Ithaca, and particularly to the school children of the Ithaca City School District. And I would urge you to take a very careful look at that, and I would urge you to vote no on this project at this time. I would also ask that a representative from the school district, whether that's a school board member or someone else, be present at your meetings, either as a member of this body or a regularly invited member, because I do think we're one of the groups most impacted, if not the most impacted, by your decisions. So thank you for your time today, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Amanda Kirchgessner.
Hello, good afternoon. Members of the IDA, I am here today to voice my strong opposition to the $85 million tax abatement for the Chainworks mixed-use development. Enough is enough is enough. While I understand the desire for development and economic growth, subsidizing developer profits for residential housing that will be high-end and inaccessible to most of the people who live in Tompkins County currently, it is not in our best interest to put forth any type of tax forgiveness to encourage this kind of development. We've seen this pattern before with developments like City Center. Despite promises made, clawback never happened when it sold for nearly 50% over market during COVID, when millions of dollars that would have come right back into the Ithaca City School District, the city of Ithaca's budget, and the county's budget just disappeared into thin air. It's beyond the pale, folks. This would have been vital. We probably wouldn't be having these hard conversations about our budget right now if we said, nope, you can sell it, but you're paying full taxes. Tax abatements often lack this accountability and enforcement measures needed to protect our public interests. Once these incentives are granted, it's almost impossible to have something done about it because TCAD didn't do it, IAD isn't doing it. It needs to change. Now more than ever, national and local economies need well-paying employment opportunities. This is why IDAs were created in the first place. The economic challenges we face currently demand that we create sustainable jobs. Just recently, the largest medical saline manufacturer in our country was destroyed in Hurricane Helene. An opportunity like Chainworks, backed by somebody like Cornell University, who has a medical school, could create a massive opportunity for a manufacturer to create high-paying, low-skilled jobs, which our community desperately needs. Do not authorize this abatement. I urge you to reject it and instead prioritize a transparent process that actually leads to invigorating our local economy. Our local economy, our regional economy, our state economy, our national economy. We need to act like leaders in a nation that is in crisis right now. We have a massive opportunity. Please don't pass it up. Stronger agreements on the table if you're going to do anything that is going to increase the tax burden of the people who own property, live and work here. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. And then Lindsay Garner. Yes. Please come up.
Thank you. I'm Lindsay Garner. I'm a Town of Ithaca resident. I didn't know I'd get the opportunity to speak today, but on the notion of transparency, nowhere was the last meeting on 9:30 I saw the camera guy there, but I couldn't find the recording. I know people asked me to post it once it was made available, which it was never made available on your website. So I don't think there's transparency in this, and the public is not informed. However, I was happy to see in the Ithaca Voice today the teachers union putting their foot down on this. Our community, as Amanda just said, we need sustainable development, sustainable growth. This is not sustainable, and I don't care about myself. I actually don't care about anyone in this room, but when I look at these kids, we're leaving a mess. And we have to be more thoughtful about how we move in this world. So when we do development, which I am all for sustainable development, I am in the real estate industry, but I cannot be asked as a taxpayer right now, and nor can many of our community members be asked to carry a project. And I know it's a tax break, but like the school has said, they're working under a $7 million deficit right now. They don't even have funds for necessities, and we're talking about squeezing people. We had to outsource our wastewater treatment employees because we can't pay them enough. okay? So until we can figure out how to correct these fundamental issues that impact us on a daily basis, these excessive tax breaks for profit in many cases, I am not interested in lining people's pockets. I am interested in making sure my community members have food to eat, can have transportation, medical services. I drive down the street nowadays and I am sad to see what we have done to our community. So until we can fix those problems, we can't add more problems. So I beg you to reconsider not voting at this time until you have way more information, until you are informed, until the people are informed, because that meeting, last meeting, was not even put on your website, and that's not right, not right.
Thank you. Right. We have some written comments, but if there's anybody else in the audience who wishes to address the IDA, seeing none, I would go to the written comments. And the first one is from Claire Forrest. I am a berry farmer directly above Southworks. There's no money in farming, but it's a nice, quiet life. I'm vehemently opposed to Southworks' plan because it's noisy. During construction, then noisy tenants with constant sirens. Tear it down, let it become open space. Don't turn that building into yet another crime-ridden housing complex. Claire Forrest and Sons Forest Family Farm. That's 330 West King Road. We then have a comment from Pat Sewell. It's a good thing. It is necessary. Some thoughts below that I did not choose to voice. I know you know all of this, but it's how I write. And this is from Pat Sewell, 166 Crescent Place on South Hill. I attended the public comments on the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency proposal for tax abatement. The majority of comments against the proposal voiced concerns regarding lost tax revenue and therefore an increased tax burden on city residents. However, the TCIDA plan does not eliminate the tax liability for the land currently being discussed. It reduces the potential amount of future revenue earned in the short term, but reducing potential revenue does not increase our tax burden. These are two separate things. An argument could be made that by limiting potential tax revenue, we are making our current taxes higher than they need to be. Why give a tax abatement at all? In short, a tax abatement is necessary to incentivize development of this area, which has sat unused for years, a toxic legacy that has created zero value for our city. The real reason for the TCIDA is if this abatement is necessary, a concern phrased colloquially as the but-for test. The development would not have happened but for the abatement. In this case, I think it does pass that test. As reported by The Voice, the site is only cash flow positive with the currently structured incentives, and the rate of return to the developers is below market expectations. If we want someone to take on the enormous investment and risk of developing this long-term liability on South Hill, we need to give them an incentive. And then we have a comment from Peter Wiziker. Hello, I'm sorry I can't join you this afternoon. Thanks to whoever is reading this for me. As you know, the economic and financial impact assessments, as well as the abatement schedule the board have been given to aid in decision on the Southworks abatements request are flawed. Yet they're being used and taken seriously. This was made clear again this week in an article in the Ithaca Voice. In an article about the teachers' union opposition to the abatements, journalist Jimmy Jordan used the IDA figures as the basis for stating that the school district should expect to receive approximately $24 million in new taxes over 20 years from the project. But as you know, that figure is based on all the construction being completed in year one and the idea that new taxes will begin flowing immediately. As we also know, this is not going to happen. The alternative abatement schedule I've shared, based on construction being done evenly throughout the 15-year period and 2% growth in value/taxes, suggests the school district will receive closer to $11.3 million, or less than half the IDA's projected amount. This is the problem with using poor data. It leads to misinformed decisions. This should not happen in private business, nor should it happen in public authorities. Would those on the board who run their own business really find this quality of work usable? I imagine not. I was hoping that Ms. McDaniel would at least have drawn up a couple of alternative abatement schedules for you to consider prior to the meeting. I don't know if she has or not. If so, I wish they'd been made available to the public. At the public hearing, Teresa Alt and a couple of other folks suggested that instead of approving the entire project now, or at least the first 5 years of it, the IDA should take it project by project. I'd like to once again propose that you go ahead and approve the initial abatement for the land itself, but hold off approving the separate 20-year abatement plan until better research has been completed. It probably makes sense to go ahead and approve the abatement for any affordable housing and the 1 or 2 building restorations that are planned for the immediate future. Although for the latter, I would suggest the standard 10-year abatement rather than 20. Or I suppose you could consider 20 and leave the school district out of it. The abatements are very long, and given that the developers are not building to spec, it is not clear why they most should receive a 20-year abatement. The documents we have in front of us do not provide sufficiently accurate information to decide one way or the other. Certainly, the market rate housing does not need any abatement at all. I recognize that the developer has momentum and would like to have this once-in-a-generation abatement approved, but the abatement terms result in an abatement 2.5 times the size of the standard enlarged one, and the amount of building it covers is far more than just about any project the IDA has dealt with to this point. It is worth waiting for better information and making the decision in at least 2 steps as to whether and how to move forward. Finally, I'll say what I always say when developers come looking for an abatement. If you decide to go ahead now, please do so without an abatement for the market rate units. Once each element is completed, all jobs associated with it should pay a living wage. The agency should require that all workers who are attached to the project through the developers, the LLCs, or the services they hire to do work, such as janitorial services, security, et cetera, should be guaranteed a living wage. The TCIDA and the taxing entities should profit from the sale of any element of the project. If the applicant resells any portion of it, whether housing, office, or something else, the state, city, county, and schools should be repaid any abated taxes and receive a share of the profits proportional to their investment in it. I was quoted in the Ithaca Voice saying that this is a pretty good project. I prefer to describe it as worthwhile, but let's get it approved based on facts, not just inclination. And then we have one more comment from our Ithaca Mayor, Robert Cantelmo. Dear Heather, thank you for your willingness to read my comments into the record. I had planned to attend, but was informed my son Roman is being sent home sick. Dear members of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency, I am writing to voice my strong support for the Southworks project. Rarely does the city have an opportunity to support the development of a new neighborhood, and rarer still is it for such a project to mitigate such a significant amount of blighted and underutilized property. As you consider the proposal before you, I humbly request that you keep in mind the significant housing crisis that faces the Ithaca community. Despite significant progress over the last 10 years, some resulting from the direct efforts of this agency, its staff, and its board, we still have significant unmet demand at all income levels in our community. Southworks is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to redevelop a critical site and leverage that toward a more sustainable housing solution. This applicant understands our community's needs and values and has a clear desire to move forward with implementation. We must not squander this critical opportunity to expand housing and economic opportunities for current and future Ithacans. As you know, this is an expensive and complex project that requires significant infrastructural investment. As such, I believe it is appropriate for the IDA to take a creative approach to providing a local tax incentive to help ensure that the project can move forward and that the site can be developed. I trust agency board members and staff are committed to working hard to determine the most appropriate incentive package to make redevelopment feasible, recognizing the additional costs associated with developing a former industrial brownfield site that has been vacant for over a decade. Thank you for your time and your consideration and your commitment to shaping a future Ithaca that meets the needs of its citizens. Sincerely, Robert Cantelmo. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the IDA? All right, well, thank you to everybody for commenting. And
Perfect. That's already been the time. Vote.
we got somebody online?
It looks like David just needs to be muted.
Oh, okay. Let's mute David. And we can proceed on our agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? I am not aware of any. I don't see any. We can proceed then to item 4, business. And of course, our first item of business is the Southworks project. I see we do have some representatives from Southworks with us today, and I'd invite you to come forward in case there's any questions from IDA members.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome. I guess I'd like to just poll the members of the IDA quickly. I am ready to make a decision today, but I'd like to make sure everybody's in line to do that. And if anybody thinks we need to take more time, we certainly can have that discussion up front. But is there anybody who does not feel ready to raise their hand at this meeting? Todd. You want to talk to us about it?
Yeah, I'm not ready. I know that they got a lot of time involved. They want to get going, but in light of all the stuff that we hear from the community, I got questions now. Like when you talk about the how it affects the school districts, and of course, with the labor aspect of it, a project this size, I know our labor policy is 75%, but why not make it? That's the minimum. Why not make it 100% if we're going to have this kind of abatement for that could be up to 40 years. I'm glad to hear, because I was concerned at first. I was concerned that we'll be tying the hands of everybody for the next 35, 40 years. But I'm glad to hear that we are doing a 5-year increment. So a developer will have to come back with showing us that they met the goals during the first 5 years. So I'm relieved about that. But I get more questions and things I'd like to see myself.
Okay. If we did take more time, what specifically would you like to see us do?
That report that Peter Wissaker did, and I can't remember the professor's name there from Cornell University. They had some really good points in those in the reports that they did, and I'd just like to see them addressed. See if there's something we could talk about with the developers, or see why their numbers are one thing, and maybe Peter has a PhD in this line of work, so I'm an electrician by trade, so I know everything about electrical trade. I don't know nothing about the world that he's talking about, so I put a lot of faith and trust in what he's saying there, and I just that's what I want to talk to people about.
Okay, I guess I'd like to hear from other IDA members. What are you thinking about readiness to make a decision? And maybe I'd walk around the room. Duxon?
I'm personally comfortable, but I'm also okay, addressing Todd's questions.
All right. Deborah?
To the extent that people's concerns seem to be focused on the validity of the analysis in the Camoin reports, I have to be honest, I think no matter how many reports we see, no matter who we listen to, a lot of the final analysis depends on the assumptions that go into your model. And I don't particularly have a great deal of confidence in anybody's assumptions. That sounds terrible, but that's the truth. I hear the teachers union being concerned about the burden on the schools, for example. One of my problems with the Camoin analysis was the assumption that most of the housing units that would be produced in this project would be purchased or leased by people moving in from somewhere outside Tompkins County. I think that's baloney. We have such a shortage of housing here. such a shortage of good, affordable housing and workforce housing that I think if you add housing stock, what you're going to see is people within Tompkins County moving around. That's one of my pet gripes with the Des Moines analysis. And I think if that's the case, then you're not going to necessarily be bringing new students in from out of Tompkins County. You're just going to be moving them around within the county. Now, that may well put a burden on South Hill School. But I also think, we've got this 5-year reassessment built into this project now. Every 5 years, I think the IDA can look at the impact on the school and the school district and reassess whether they want to continue the same pilot schedule for the school district.
On future phases, yes.
I just think that there are safeguards built into this to the extent that we can build them in. And I just don't see, short of saying, no, we're not going to abate the school taxes, which honestly, I expect that would kill this project. I don't see how we address some of the problems people have raised. So I just don't see that anybody's going to come in with more information that's going to change my view on this.
Okay. Jerry.
Thanks, Rich. I have to agree with a lot of what Deborah just said. Although I think I have a different opinion regarding how the housing might become occupied. Just knowing the number of people that work in our community and leave our community on a daily basis because there's nowhere or they can't afford to live here. So I suspect that the addition of workforce housing would, even if it does have people moving around, would open up housing elsewhere. I mean, the addition of affordable housing is, I think, our goal. I will concede that I am this is my 3rd meeting at the IDA. I'm new to the board. And so although I've read a lot and tried to get up to speed, I feel that I may have missed. I'm wondering, to Todd's point and some of the concerns that are being expressed, how some of this stuff wasn't addressed earlier, how the school, ICSD wasn't brought into the conversation earlier. I wonder why many of these concerns haven't been parsed out already. I will say this, and I am ready to vote today, and one of the reasons is because this has gone on for 6 months, and I think that we have been dealing in good faith with the developers, and it would be irresponsible to reshuffle this deck, look at new information when we've looked at plenty of information. And this is where I agree with Deborah, that I think anyone can massage numbers to make them look the way they want to. I think that this is a site to what was Ms. Sewell's was the one who made the comment, the one you read, about the fact that this is not going to take money out of people's pockets. This is not going to affect the amount of money people, the property will continue to pay property taxes. And I think that the developers need to know an answer from this board in order to move forward. I mean, I imagine you probably can't get funding. You probably can't go look and talk to anybody about any kind of funding absent this decision. So I think while I am clearly hearing the people that are concerned about this, I would suggest that because of the guardrails that have been put in place, I feel comfortable moving ahead. So thank you.
Okay. Jeff.
Yeah, I'm comfortable on voting today. I think our process has been thorough and comprehensive. I'll note for the record that we really started this back in 2023 when the IDA members toured the facility. We appreciate Southworks and Heather putting that together and getting allowing us to get a sense of what this huge project is going to entail. And then we received the application on June 12th and now have had subsequently, this will be our 6th meeting on this project. And the developers have certainly come in, answered any and all questions that we've had. We have had 2 independent reports produced by us, and although we can argue about whether they're comprehensive enough or not, I think the key for me was, and I've done this in my professional career enough, the budgeting and forecasting, is you can assume these reports to death and then they don't, quite frankly, mean anything anymore. And I think the key one for me is a reasonableness test in terms of the final, when this thing is built out, what do the cash flows look like? And does the developer need that 20-year incentive? And that report says it does. So that was really the key for me to understand, okay, I think we should go outside of our box and approve a 20-year rather than a 10-year. And then I think, look, I'll compliment Rich and Heather for guiding us through this long and complex process. I think we've gotten enough input to be able to make a decision today. I will note that we don't have a lot of developers knocking on our door willing to invest $182 million of their own equity to really, as everyone has said, to rehab a site that is needed. And quite frankly, to do it in the Ithaca way, I would say, with all of the environmental concerns that they've addressed, with the rehab of existing buildings instead of tearing them down. So I feel like I'm comfortable in voting today.
Ann?
Yeah, I agree with everything that has been said so far. I think I would like just to ask a quick question and just to recap on, because what has been brought up today and also at the public hearing was about the schools. So Heather, can you reiterate what was done to reach out to the schools over X amount of time? Because we're just hearing now from people at the school, like last week when the hearing was, and there had been outreach.
We had sent email invitations to the school board and the superintendent to come and speak. We had sent them links to all of the application materials. Legal documents are sent whenever a project deviates or when there's a public hearing. So there were notices that were sent to the secretary of the school board, the chair of the school board, and the superintendent along the way.
I'm just seeing the person on the school board shaking their head no, they didn't get information. So that's an issue. I don't know what the issue is, but I am comfortable going forward today because we have the 5-year look back at this and reevaluate it. And so I would like to make sure that we have really good minutes that capture all of this, and including inviting from here on, making sure if someone wants to come from the school board or the school itself, administration, that they come to these meetings going forward, and that informs us so we can get that information. As people are moving in, are there more kids going to the school? Let's track this. And I think this would also help us with future projects too, to get, because we haven't had this with other projects, to see what's happening, after we give an abatement. So I think this is actually a unique opportunity for us because we have the 5-year stop and look and see what we want to do from there. And I think it's also an opportunity to have more engagement with the school and the public, the municipalities on this. But I don't want to just say this. I want to make sure we either talk today or at our next meeting of, engaging that with everybody here, the developers. And so I hope you come back and help us with that. Is that something you'd be willing to do as we go forward?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, again, I feel comfortable with this. Are the written comments that you read today, were they the ones that were sent for the hearing?
No, they're in addition.
And
And
so
you should
were they
have-
included, were the written comments, I didn't read.
You should have all of them
The written ones are in here as we're also, okay.
from the public hearing.
Because I think this will be real important as much as we can document. Going forward, as I said, let's, it's like it's a working, relationship, and I'm invested as long as I'm on the IDA and a county legislator and beyond to help, work on this together. And I just want to remind folks, because we have one of our policies about affordable housing, if there is market rate housing, not saying you wouldn't do it anyway, but that assures us that there's either affordable housing in a project, or we get in lieu of payments, and then that goes to our Community Housing Development Fund, which incentivizes affordable housing. So I'm glad we have that in there, and I'm glad there's going to be, that you've agreed to do that, because that's much easier. That short, cuts right to where we want it. And on the site, I think is always better where you have more mixed, you have, you're going to have offices, not real keen. I've heard we don't have a lot of open office spaces, so I'm not real keen on that, but I know it's not a huge part of the project. But as far as industrial training, and also for large businesses to be centered there, for the market rate housing, the affordable housing, and all the other things that are going to be there. I know some people said about a small grocery store or something like that might be helpful. So I'm ready to go forward today, but I'd also be okay if we didn't. But I'm glad we've gotten to this part, and I really do appreciate people coming from the public.
Well, thank you for letting me put all of you on the spot. I will weigh in myself, and I'll start out by saying I am ready to make a decision today. And pardon me I prepared some notes. I'll go through, I won't take too much time, but I do want to note that this is years in the making, that I can't remember the first time I walked through the Emerson building, but it was at least 5 years ago, and probably more. This has been a gigantic project, and I see David Lubin is sitting on our screens there. This is long-term, and in that process, we've certainly done a lot of work, but I want to note the work done by the Town of Ithaca Planning Board and the City of Ithaca Planning Board. One of the comments we heard at the public hearing was that we should be looking at community impacts, like traffic and parking and all of that. That has been beaten to death at those two boards, and it's supposed to be. It's not our function to relitigate those things, but I'm confident that they have been examined, and I've sat down with the representatives from the town of Ithaca and had an extensive discussion. They said, yes, we're ready to go. And Duxon, you've indicated that that's the case at the city as well, and we got the letter from the mayor saying, yes, please. This has been a thoroughly studied project from that direction. From our direction, I want to note that we're following New York State, that the DEC has done tremendous amounts of examination here and looked at it from the environmental considerations. Again, not our work, but the work was done, and this has been extensively examined. Not only did we get the Camoin studies, but our staff, Heather, has done an internal analysis as well. She did the math too. And we've had, in addition to that, site visits. I know we've all had a chance to walk through and see it. We've certainly, more than any other project I've been involved with, we've received public comment here. And we've given the public multiple opportunities to come speak to us. We've made specific invitations. I wish that we had had more interaction with the school district earlier, but we certainly, I feel confident, have tried. We had a very well-publicized public hearing and well-attended with a full range of comments. It was really good. And in addition to that, I know that each one of you and I have had individual discussions with community members about the Southworks project. I don't think that anybody here has walk through this without being approached and answering questions about it, and really a lot of probing stuff. So I'm very confident this has been put out there the way it should be. And frankly, I think we've been very transparent in how we've gone about this process. At least we've certainly tried to explain what we're doing, explain the IDA process, which a lot of people don't understand, but I think we've done our homework there. And where we sit, you know, some of you have commented about the precision of the estimates. There's so many variables here. I agree with the comments that we could do a lot more study and bring the Camoin study or Heather's analysis, you know, with the benefit of Peter Whitaker. I think he's right. We could get far more precise estimates. It depends on the assumptions you plug in the beginning, but I'm very confident that we answer two basic statements, and those are the many benefits of the project make it worth supporting. This will be really good for our community, and also that the project could not proceed without the IDA support. And that's, you know, I know some people think, well, why don't they just build it? It just is not that easy. And I'd invite people to look around our community at some of the approved projects we've approved with support that are not proceeding now because this is such a tight market with construction costs, with interest rates, with available labor. This isn't easy, and the IDA support makes a difference. We're doing something valuable in considering this and offering our support. And then certainly we need to think about the schools and the impact on the schools. And there is a factor that because the taxes are phased in, the school may deal with additional students before the taxes are fully ramped up. That's true for the city, the town, and the county too, for all the services we provide, but it's true for the school too. However, the school does get the benefit of all the other IDA projects that have gone before and all the housing projects that have gone before. Since its inception, the IDA has added almost $2 billion of new value in our county. It matters, and those projects are generating dramatic amounts of tax revenue that benefit all of us, including the schools. And that's the deal, that you give the abatement, you get the long-term benefit, and you have to look in the long term. In this case, if we cut out the school district's portion of the incentives, the project does not happen. I am fully confident of that. And then we have a 15-year-old derelict site that does not get developed, and I don't know how it gets built out. So I'm very confident that we need to do this, and we need to have the schools come along. With that said, the school district votes on a budget every year, and taxes. And certainly they had a very difficult vote this last spring. I think part of the issue there is making the case to the voters that the taxes are necessary to do the job. You know, and that's always going to be a fight, but that's where the fight has to occur. The idea, in the face of the planning department, the assessment department, the legislature, the continuum of care, consultants, realtors, and just looking at the cost of housing, real estate, that we don't need housing, that we can just say we're not going to build, we're not going to support as an IDA, we're not going to support new housing projects. I think that's just untenable. This is the job put before us, and it's what our community needs. And the idea of taking a new position where housing isn't important flies in the face of the information we've been bombarded with. So I recognize that the struggles the school district may have, but we all have those struggles as governmental entities, and we just have to work through them. We have to make it work otherwise and get there. We need to build the housing, among all the other benefits of this project. And I don't need to go into the danger of no development at all here. I think that's clear to everybody. The only other comments I guess I'd like to make, I won't speak to those benefits, but they've been well described by our guests. But personally, I really want to walk to Buttermilk Falls. I want that trail open. I know all the other good things, and there's a long list, the daycare, everything. I want to walk down that trail, just personally. I'll say that. And then I have said this before, and I think we're headed there. I think it's very important that as an IDA, if possible, we proceed on this with consensus. And it sounds like we're getting there. I think there's some reticence, some reluctance, but we need to send a clear message to our community that this is the way to proceed and that we were clear on that. Finally, I want to thank everybody who commented. You know, even the ones that came in and called us idiots. That's democracy at work. It's really good. I want to give a nod to John Guttridge, who worked on this for quite a while and had to step away. And then to the IDA members, yourselves, and to our staff for the tremendous amount of work that they have done, to our guests today who are going to carry this forward, put shovels in the ground. But for the several months of attention we've put on this, and the years, in fact, before that, but that's all I really have to say. I guess that's enough. I'll stop. Any further comment from the members? Duxon.
So I thought you were straw polling, but I did have a few things I wanted to say about why I do support moving ahead with the incentive. I think most obviously the project is incredible. This mix of housing and retail industrial use, once in a generation opportunity that I and practically everyone I speak to, including especially the mayor, are incredibly excited about. So that's kind of a given, that the project is something that the vast majority of the community wants to see. John Oakley made a great comment at the public hearing that the property, will become an expense to the community if it's not developed, and that's what we risk by not assisting with it. Rich made the point I wanted to make, is that the incentive is not a guarantee. Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, but I count like 3 or 4 projects off the top of my head that have gotten an incentive but haven't broken ground yet, and that does not do our community any favors. An example of this was, I think right before I came on council, Campus Advantage was a company that had its sights on this bit of property called Tree Block. Did not get the incentive and did not go forward with it. So they pulled out of Ithaca. City Center got built instead. It's true that it was sold for a good amount of profit. But again, that is a project that wouldn't have happened without the incentive. It's now, if I'm not mistaken, coming up on its 7th year of reaching that 100% at year 10, and that extra revenue we wouldn't have, the city would not have, the county wouldn't have, and the school district without it being constructed. So a bunch of people have brought up that like the 5-year review gives them some comfort. It does to me too, but it's not just that, it's that there are specific sub-projects that are important to me that are prioritized by that schedule. And so I'm also heartened by the way that the incentive is structured in that way. And lastly, as a steward, one of the 11 stewards of the city budget, we very much care about the impact on the community, but 2 of the major things, water and sewer, they're paid for by usage. So to us, it's a new customer to help pay for facilities that already have fixed costs, enormous ones. Fire and police, they have not scaled with new development, the thousands of new housing units we've built over the past decade. It's not unique to this project at all. It's something that it's a challenge for the city to pay for the labor and fringe benefits that they entail, but we've also had hiring issues. So while it is a legitimate concern, it is somewhat tangential to this project in particular. We have the hard problem of prioritizing, and not just fire and police, but the unarmed crisis response unit that we want to get set up that was promised through this effort for reimagining public safety. So the stewards of city funds do have that responsibility, but I don't feel that is a direct impact from the project itself. And so for all those reasons, I am enthusiastically supporting moving forward on this.
Thank you, Duxon. Deborah, did you have a comment or anybody else? I didn't mean to pick on you.
I guess one thing that I'm profoundly and sometimes painfully aware of, as an elected, as a member of this board, is that we hear from people who want their side of the Rubik's Cube addressed first, maybe only. I think our decisions have to take into account all 6 sides of the cube. I don't know if I'm expressing this very well. So this particular cube, we're trying to address a housing shortage. We're trying to create jobs, and this is a mixed-use development that will do that. There's a school district burden we need to be aware of. This project would address a currently blighted and underused piece of property. This project would build tax base. And to the extent that people move around in the county and move into the county because there's additional housing, it would address the environmental costs of all the in-commuters that we deal with. So trying to make all of those sides work at the same time sometimes ticks people off who come in and say, look at my side of the cube first. And for that, I apologize. I understand your frustration, but I think it's incumbent on us to solve all 6 sides of the cube. And I think that this development pretty much ticks all the boxes. It may be in the short term somewhat fraught. I am concerned about the impact on the school district. But I think in the long term, it will be good for the school district and for all of us.
Todd?
Yeah, it's going to be good to see something happen there. But another point I have is that you look at Gun Hill. Gun Hill used to be jobs at Gun Hill, good paying jobs. Used to be Morris Chain, Emerson, cash register. With all the industries that are leaving, then we got down there on Cecil Malone, down there where someone wants to put more housing down there too. We're giving up all this industrial land, stuff that it's easier to put job creators in, and we're using it for apartments and affordable housing and stuff. I just think we're missing the boat there. I want to see more jobs so people have jobs so they eventually don't need affordable housing. That's the way I like to lean toward it, give them something, if they get a good paying job, that's what I want to bring in here. That's what I think the purpose of IDA myself, because I used to be on the outside a lot looking, coming to these meetings. That's the thing I always like to see is that we're bringing more jobs so people can better themselves and get away from affordable housing. That's it. I think it's just prime land. It's prime land right there. We're looking at the same thing with Gun Hill now. Like I said, and down there with the old Weissman plant, it's the same thing. It's just great land, for industry. Just
Okay. Ann?
Yeah, thank you for bringing all that up, Todd. And I know the IAED board is looking at that, and Heather is a big part of that, is looking at what we can bring to this community. So thank you for doing that. I think we can walk and chew gum. And that's not, I can't always do that, but collectively, if we could do that.
Another Knickerbocker, Heather.
Or 2, yeah, right. And I appreciate what people said. We hear you. People always, they don't want to hand out. They want to hand up. And I think that is something that we can keep in the forefront of our mind. And they want good jobs, so they don't have to go into affordable housing. And I know with my family growing up, there was a lot of times we had the handout, and it's really tough. It takes a lot of time to figure out where to get that. It's much easier just to be paid a living wage, substantial enough to be able to live in this community, and it's getting more expensive to live here, and we see that. We don't have all the answers, but we're working on it. And I want to point out, too, it wasn't said today about, or maybe it was, but the cleanup, again, the cleanup of the site is huge. As a retired home inspector, going to the different houses down below that site and seeing, hearing about the different health problems that people had over the years, and the adaptations that needed to be made to those houses, and the continuing maintenance that needs to be done so the pollution doesn't come up through the ground on those sites. So the cleanup is huge, and I don't believe it would have happened it would not have happened now if this site wasn't looked at being developed. And I really appreciate all the green energy aspects, because that's a priority for me and for a lot of us in this community. And of course, the adaptive reuse. Would we have loved more, industrial to come in? Sure, but that's not what's before us. And so I'm glad that it's an adaptive reuse of a building, several buildings, versus leveling it. There's a lot of embedded materials and embedded energy in that. And so I'm glad to see that. And lastly, I just want to say, I asked you before to commit to coming and keep working together on this project. And if we could extend, I'd like to extend that invitation to the school board and members of the community to keep coming, and maybe let's do it somewhat formally, where we're going to have conversations to make sure, not just have to show up for a couple of minutes, but to have real conversations. So thank you.
Jeff or Jerry, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I appreciate the eloquence of my fellow board members.
Well, I realize
articulated these points really well. Thank you.
I realize I made one mistake. I did not thank our council. I see Brad Schwartz and Russ Gensel on screen, and I did want to note that we had some fairly complicated requests to turn into words in revising this this plan on how incentives would work, and you guys you met our timeline and you did it. So I wanted to say we appreciate that. Anything else? Anybody else have anything to say? Are we ready to vote?
Is it on the floor?
I have something to say. Transparency was not given.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Yeah, no, the public comment is done.
I hear you, but like,
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, but
it was not transparent, this process.
Okay.
I'd just like to say, just very briefly, just a message of gratitude. As you mentioned, we've been working on this. Well, David has been working on this for a very long time, but we together with your board have been working for several months, and it's been a productive and process, and I appreciate the thoughtful engagement and the feedback we got, and I think we landed in a really positive place, and I appreciate that we have the safeguards in place that we can come back and take a look at this. And I also want to thank the broader community, the many supporters we had, as well as those who were critical. And I really wanted to end with an invitation that Sarah has always been so good at, that we really do, we invite continued conversation, we invite tours, we invite engagement. So we appreciate that, and thank you.
Okay, thank you for saying that. Yeah. Heather, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I'm just going to add that every time we've been audited, the state compliments us on our website, and other IDAs sort of look to our website to model the way they provide information. And so I just want to sort of reiterate that, the public hearing notice is there, the public hearing comments are there, most of the comments that were received are up there. There's a project page with all the project information. The agenda packets are all there, all the minutes from all the meetings. We actually received some phone calls from people wondering where they could find things, and we were able to point them in the right direction. I've realized today from some of the comments that one of the things that I don't think is up there is a link to our YouTube page where you can watch any of the old meetings or public hearings, and so I've made a note to add that to our website. The link to live stream is there, but not the archived things. So, if you go to YouTube, you can Google it. You can, look for Tompkins County IDA. But it will be up there shortly. So, it is our best intention to really provide information. And I would like to end by just saying that, it has been a multi-year process working with the team at Shift. And, every time there was an issue or a question, the team stepped right up and was able to answer questions, provide additional information. They spent a lot of time walking through their pro formas and their financials and, some of the more intricate pieces of this project. And for that, I want to really thank you for your willingness to open your books, to share information so that there was a fairly complete understanding of the project and how things are going to work. And thank the IDA members yourselves. You have difficult decisions to make all the time, and I am continually impressed by your discussions, by your thoughtfulness, and your ability to take sometimes very disparate information and make decisions. So thank you for the time that you have put into this project. I know it's been long, it's been many months now, and your willingness to really hear all sides in this process. I think it makes us for a better community and a better board.
Thank you. All right, Duxon.
I'll add to that. It's rare that the IDA incentive process has been covered as well in the media, so I do want to thank The Voice and The Times for covering this. I think it was wise to put out a press release so that this went out further. And I too would like to thank the project team. I can't think of any circumstance where a developer was offering tours to literally anybody in the community to stop by. It's usually, the electeds or other connected people, but literally anyone can ask Sarah for a tour and she will do it. And that's pretty rare, and that is an opportunity for the community to engage with the project in a really unique way.
Sarah.
That was a really nice segue. I just wanted to, Nena indicated this and Anne asked for it directly, and I just want to emphasize, this is a working relationship that we're going to have with the IDA and with the community. Rob and I live here, we're neighbors, we care very deeply about the impact that this project is going to have and that it's something that's really positive and beneficial, and that it will iterate over time. After the last public hearing, Teresa and I had a conversation about the grocery store idea because it was something we talked about internally, just hadn't officially published anything because we didn't have prospects yet. But there's been interest in various types of uses at the space. None of it is set in stone, except that we are for sure building the residential 915 units, but there's a lot that can flex over time. And so we're excited to see who wants to come and co-create this space with us. And that does include some industrial tenants. About 200 to 300,000 square feet of the existing space will be preserved for industrial. And part of my leasing strategy is trying to direct prospects to the spaces that are best fit for them while preserving other spaces that have industrial amenities for those businesses that might need them. So just really looking forward to continuing this conversation beyond this meeting.
Okay, Deborah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're working on that. I would hope that you might try to reach out to things like a grocery store, a drugstore, because downtown, which is walkable from your site, doesn't really have those amenities. And it's a pretty fair hike down to 13. It would be nice if what you could create was a more or less self-contained community.
Yeah. Well, and you know, self-contained in that it has what you need at your fingertips,
Right.
but also accessible to everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. That'd be
Okay.
great.
Any further comment? Could I get a motion to, Deborah moves, could I get a second? Jeff seconds, okay. It's on the floor. Any further discussion? Are we ready to vote? I will call the roll. Duxon.
Yes.
Deborah.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
Todd.
No.
And the chair votes yes. I believe that's 6-1, so it is approved. Wow. Wow, here we are. So thank you. You're welcome to stay at the meeting, but you might want to go off in the world and start digging.
Sincere gratitude, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Board.
Okay. Next item of business is the 2025 TCIDA draft budget, and that's on page 17 of your packet.
So just as a reminder, we do need to adopt a draft budget to upload into the state's public authorities reporting information system, commonly known as PARIS, and that needs to be done by November 1st. So what we do is we look at, you know, what we think is going to happen through the end of the year. We'll project out next year, and that's really how we put the draft budget together. If things change, we can always modify that and repost it up on the Paris website. And I'm happy to take any questions on the proposed budget.
I have a question. Looking at a potential income, where is the 494,985 coming from? Is that the Southworks project or somewhere else?
Some of that is that fee for that base pilot at Southworks, and then other projects that have not yet closed, that RSS, the Meadow Street project, the Conifer project is just the pilot extension. There were a couple of others I had made note. The stately.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Do you need a motion on this to approve it?
Yes.
Okay. Deborah moves, Duxon seconds. Further discussion? Ready to vote? Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. And we have a tentative draft budget to send to Paris. See what they do with it. Any other business? Seeing none, I do not have a chair's report. I think we had one major item of business today, and that was enough. Staff report.
I'm working on a solar memo that I'll be presenting for our commercial solar projects at next month's meeting. We've just recently received word that the stately may want to close by year's end, so the attorneys are starting to talk about documents. I'm going to cross my fingers, but it may close early next year. I've received a preliminary request from Library Place that you may see next month to just move the pilot years because of when they actually were completed was a little later than anticipated. And you will also see next month the MOU between IAED and the IDA to provide services for the IDA and economic development services countywide. I want to note that you did last year request to see it earlier in the year, maybe in September, and I have had discussions with the chair and the vice chair, and we decided to sort of hold that until after the Southworks project so that we could be more focused on Southworks. So you will start to see that in November. And then finally, I just wanted to note that I added onto our agenda packet. Did anyone notice that I added something new?
snuck it in there, huh?
I snuck in our mission statement, and I just thought it would be important to remember the mission that previous board members spent a lot of time sort of noodling and wordsmithing, and I'm not going to read it at every meeting, but I'm going to read it today. The Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency delivers economic incentives to business and industry to diversify and strengthen Tompkins County's tax base and enhance community vitality by supporting job creation, business and industrial development, and community revitalization. We strive to develop the local economy in an organized, sustainable, and environmentally beneficial manner. And that's my staff report for today.
You take me back memory lane, the amount of time we spent tweaking words on that. Questions or comments for staff? One thing that might be useful to us is a status report on some of the projects that seem to be stalled. We had started a discussion on whether there might be further steps we could take as an IDA to help move these. And I'm not sure if there is anything, but I think it would be important for us to have that conversation, or at least extend it.
I could, I did reach out to all of the projects that are stalled and said, hey, is there anything more the IDA could do? Do you want to talk about moving these projects forward? And I have very recently heard from the BVSHF project and the parking lot at 400, what's the address? 401 East State Street, that they may be looking to move forward here in the next little bit. So that's might be heating back up. I've been working with City Harbor to try and find some additional funding to reduce their gap. I'm going to be applying for some Appalachian Regional Commission federal funding. Won't close their entire gap, but it will close some of that gap. So those are the two really that I've sort of heard from. And the others have just sort of said, not ready to talk right now, nothing's going on right now. Would you like to have that sheet again with the list of those projects that are sort of stalled?
I think that would be a good reminder for us. And I assume at City Harbor, the Appalachian Regional grant money would be for waterfront. So like the trail and the amenities?
It will be for, yes, primarily it has to be amenities that are going to be owned by the city. I think there's going to be an easement or an MOU that City Harbor will maintain them. So waterfront promenade, some of the upgrades to the Newman Municipal Golf Course, and likely Pier Road as well. Pocket Park, kayak launch, things like that.
Okay. Questions, comments? All right, thank you. We do have minutes from September 11th, 2024. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes? Ann moves, Jerry seconds. Questions or comments on the minutes? Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Todd?
I need to abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. All right, and I'll vote yes. Okay, any other business to come before the Industrial Development Agency? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved, seconded, all in favor, we'll take a hand. We are adjourned. And now I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Tompkins County Development Corporation for Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. Welcome, everybody. We did have privilege of the floor at the IDA, but if there's anybody who wishes to address the Development Corporation on Development Corporation items, seeing none, no additions to the agenda. Business, we have the appointment of board secretary, and Deborah Dawson has graciously agreed to take that role as John Guttridge had been serving as secretary. So thank you, Deborah. Could I get a motion to appoint All right, Todd moves, Ann seconds.
We got a lot of hands for that, right?
Yes.
Ask what exactly it is that I've agreed to do.
You're going to sign the secretary's certificate on the resolution we passed on Southworks.
Ah, okay.
And you will apply your signature to other items as well. I'm not sure the responsibilities go far beyond that, but it's necessary.
Good to hear.
But it's necessary. All right. Are we ready to vote? Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right.
Deborah?
If we turn to page 2, we have the 2025 TCDC budget, the draft. Heather, is there anything you want to tell us about this?
And again, this is a draft so that we can upload it into the Paris system by November 1st.
Great. Questions or comments?
I don't know, it's a pretty complicated budget.
It is extremely complicated. We don't see a lot of tax-exempt bond debt from one year to the next.
I do note the budget has the $150K for the commercial kitchen. Does it look like that's going to get expended this year or not?
I am hopeful that we will expend those funds by the end of the year.
Okay. I assume otherwise it would get carried forward into 2025, but
yes,
what we need to do today is send something to Paris.
Yep.
Okay.
And in the block 14, it looks like we've already spent 30. Do you think that the rest of the 60 will be pushed off into 25?
Yes.
Okay. Anything further? Ready to vote? Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. I have no chair's report. Staff report for the Development Corporation?
The shared commercial kitchen, I did forward to everybody an invitation for a little open house they're doing for their investors or their potential investors. They have signed a lease. They are taking in donations and contributions, and I am told they should have all their contingencies met here in the next month or so, and then we might be able to disperse funding for the equipment that was awarded for that project. And then the Block 14 project, we did disperse the first 1/3 of that funding. The check has not yet been cashed. It's been almost 90 days, so we did reach out and request an update. And we were told that they are waiting to have discussions with the legislature before they cash the check and really start to move forward, which they said was going to happen imminently. So
okay.
I might have more updates on that project next month.
All right.
I would note the mission statement, though, on this agenda. We caught that now, huh?
Okay, Ann.
Yeah, just want to remind folks, if you haven't signed up for the shared kitchen tour, they want you to pre-register, even though it's free, but they want to know how many folks are there. It's on, I can't remember when the email came through, but it's the event is on the 23rd of October at 6 p.m., and I'm looking forward to
6
seeing
to 8,
that.
yep, down at the site.
Right.
Okay. All right. We have minutes from the June 12th, 2024 meeting of the Development Corporation. Could I get a motion? Todd moves, Duxon seconds. Questions or comments? Ready to vote. Duxon.
Yes.
Deborah.
Yes.
Jerry.
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Jeff.
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. Any other business to come before the Development Corporation?
Just a point of order. I don't think you have to be at a meeting to vote on the minutes, just so everybody knows.
That's certainly the practice at the legislature.
And I think that's consistent with Robert's rules and whatever applicable state law there is. Just
Right, you don't have to abstain. You can abstain, but you can't vote if you want to.
Okay. Any other business? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Big meeting. Wow.
Well done, Rich.